Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends. Good morning and thank you to the Congo Basin Forest Partnership and the two co-facilitators, France and Gabon, for bringing us together this week to tackle two critically important issues: environmental crime and human-wildlife conflict. Now, apologies I can't be with you there in person today, but we are well represented in Libreville by our dear friend and colleague, Ulysse Corrigone. Thank you, Ulysse. Now, colleagues, over the past 2 decades, we've seen the international community give increasing attention to crimes that affect the environment, or put more succinctly, environmental crimes. Now, it's an exciting time, and over the next 12 to 18 months, we have a unique opportunity to make major advances in tackling these highly destructive crimes. Now, the first environmental crime to attract a lot of attention was wildlife trafficking, and it continues to attract a lot of attention today. Just by way of example, in 2015, the UN General Assembly adopted its first ever resolution on tackling illicit trafficking in wildlife. And just last month, 10 years after its first resolution, the UN General Assembly adopted another powerful resolution on wildlife trafficking. Now, these resolutions have all been led by a UN group of friends, which has been so ably led by Gabon and Germany since 2014. And in 2021, the UN General Assembly adopted its first comprehensive resolution on crimes that affect the environment. Now, since the adoption of these resolutions, we've seen many reports released on the scale, nature, and impacts of these crimes, including by the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, through a series of World Wildlife Crime reports, a global analysis of crimes that affect the environment, and more detailed reports on several of the 9 environmental areas covered by the analysis. Yet despite these reports clearly demonstrating the industrial scale, organised and transnational nature, and the severe impacts of environmental crimes, including wildlife trafficking, there is no legally binding agreement on preventing and combating any of them. Now, this can be contrasted to the trafficking in persons, migrant smuggling, and firearms trafficking. These 3 crimes are covered by individual agreements, namely separate protocols adopted under the UN Convention Against Transnational Organised Crime. Now, as a result, we've seen many states and initiatives, such as the Global Initiative to End Wildlife Crime and others, call for a new protocol or protocols covering various crimes that affect the environment, such as on wildlife trafficking, including marine and timber species, and the trafficking of minerals and precious metals. Now, for example, in May 2022, a groundbreaking resolution was adopted by the UN Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice that mandated a process to gather states' views on the possible benefits of a protocol on wildlife trafficking. And a clear majority of the states that responded were supportive or open to the idea. And then last year, a resolution on crimes that affect the environment was adopted at the UN Convention Against Transnational Organised Crime, COP12, that established an intergovernmental expert group to, amongst other things, identify any gaps in the current international legal framework and to explore the possibility, feasibility, and merits of any additional protocol to the convention. Now, the intergovernmental expert group, which is chaired by Peru, met for the first time last week, and it will meet on several further occasions before submitting its report to the next Conference of the Parties in late 2026. Now, colleagues, countries rich in biodiversity and other natural resources are the most impacted and have the most to lose from environmental crimes. It's imperative that Congo Basin states collectively and individually engage in this intergovernmental process to ensure we build a robust and effective international legal framework for preventing and combating these highly destructive crimes. Now, we've identified 3 serious gaps in the existing legal framework for tackling crimes that affect the environment, including wildlife trafficking. Namely, there are no agreed definitions, including on what conduct should be criminalised, no legally binding agreements on preventing or combating any of these crimes, and no global centre of gravity for advancing cooperative efforts to combat and prevent them, or for reviewing the progress being made. And all of this seriously inhibits international cooperation. Now, as you know, it's not easy to prevent the illegal taking and trafficking of wildlife and other natural resources at source. We need to work right across the illegal supply chain, and this includes putting pressure on destination states. Amongst other articles, we should encourage Congo Basin states to consider pushing for a new protocol or protocols to include an article that obliges states to make it a criminal offence to import any natural resources, such as wildlife, including fish and timber, minerals and precious metals, into a country if it has been acquired in contravention of the national laws of the source country. Now, this would oblige destination states to require proof of the legal origin of any natural resources before allowing it to be imported. And a failure to provide such proof would need to be treated as a criminal offence. Now, if this was done, it would represent a remarkable expression of comity between nations or a mutual respect for one another's laws, and it would help take pressure off source states. Colleagues, it's the peoples, legitimate investors, and the governments of source countries that should benefit from their natural resources, as well as our global biodiversity, climate, health, and security, and not organised criminals. A new protocol or protocols on combating and preventing environmental crimes as an integral part of making that aspiration become a reality. And we now have a unique opportunity to make major progress in seriously tackling transnational environmental crimes. And the organisations I represent will do their utmost to support Congo Basin states, upon request, to achieve this objective, including through the intergovernmental process that is currently underway. I wish you well, and I thank you.